Hey everybody, welcome back to Brainiac Baseball's 1984 Detroit Tigers season replay. Today's video will be our American League West preview. We're going to take a look at each of the teams in the West and look at their starting rotations as well as their lineup as we look forward to the 1984 season, which will begin on April 1st. So last week, if you haven't already seen it, we took a look at the American League East with our Tigers in it. And we did a video prior to that in which we reviewed the offseason where we looked at the trades and the free agent signings ahead of the beginning of the season. So if you haven't seen those videos, please feel free to take your time and look at those. We will be doing the National League East and the National League West coming up here shortly over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. As you see here, we covered in last week's video that Steve Kemp was the American League MVP. He batted .300 with 31 home runs and 137 RBI for the Yankees. The American League Cy Young Award went to Teddy Higuera, who was 22-8 with a .218 ERA and 225 strikeouts. And the American League Rookie of the Year was Rod Allen of the Chicago White Sox. He batted .279 with 36 home runs and 103 RBIs. So, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our first team, which is going to be the Kansas City Royals. They finished in last place last year with a 67-95 record. We're going to look at their lineup first and foremost. They have one rookie that will come out of spring training and in their everyday lineup, and that's going to be Fred McGriff as their first baseman. He's only 20 years old, still representing the minor league baseball card here. He had 12 home runs in single A last year, and it looks like he's going to be their everyday first baseman. They did lose Willie Mays Aikens. He was a free agent and was signed by Boston, I believe. Their leadoff man is Willie Wilson. There you see him represented by his 1984 Topps card. He was injured for almost the entire season last year, and so he only had 16 stolen bases. If you're finding this video before you've seen any of the other videos, we did begin our sim in 1980. So all of the statistics that you see from 1980 and to the current date are all part of our sim numbers. So yes, they have Willie Wilson leading off. He's going to be playing center field. Dave Chalk, who got his first everyday duty last year, will remain at third base. We've got Don Slaught as the catcher. He had an excellent year last year for the Royals. Fred McGriff, as we mentioned, is their first baseman. Batting fifth will be Darryl Motley out in right field. He is coming off his rookie year. Pretty solid season. Butch Davis will be out in left field. Again, he got well over 500 at-bats last year. It's looking to me like their offense is really not their problem. Kelly Heath will play second base, his first year of getting everyday play. Pat Sheridan will be in right field, or maybe he is the DH. Let's take a look here. Pat Sheridan will be in right field. So the DH will be Darryl Motley, and Gary Templeton will be their shortstop. They did sign him to a free agent contract, 5 years for $1.2 million. He was the Gold Glove winner at shortstop last year, also in 1981. So a pretty solid pickup for them. That should give them some stability in the middle infield. So, I mean, that is actually a very good job for them. Maybe they put all their eggs in one basket. I don't know if they signed any other players. Everybody else you see here were all players that were on the team last year, either in the minors or on the roster. Their backups include Jamie Quirk, their backup catcher. They have Rance Mulliniks, who's had a couple good seasons. I think he might have won the batting title in 1982. No, he did not, actually, but he was an all-star in 82. And so he'll be either a backup middle infielder. Mike Brewer will play on the roster as a corner outfielder. Rene Gonzalez will play at third base. Actually, he can play anywhere. Utility guy. Anywhere in the infield. And Pete Lecoq, who got a lot of play at first base last year. I don't know how he is still making it on this team. I mean, he's not going to be a starter, it looks like. But he's under free agency until 1985. And he was out of baseball by 1982. So I have a feeling he'll be down in the minor leagues before long. If you take a look at the rest of their minor league roster down here, you'll see a couple of players who got to play in the major leagues last year. We traded Howard Johnson to Kansas City for George Brett. That's how Brett got on the Tigers. So it looks like Howard Johnson will not get the everyday starting nod at third, but his overall rating is the same as Dave Chalk, so he might get to be in their lineup before too long. Let's scroll down and look at their single A batters. Do they have anybody of any real note down here? I mean, nobody that really gets me excited. They have some players who are in the 80s rating-wise, but nobody who I think you're going to go, well, we got to get that guy into the lineup right away. Double A, yeah, I mean, nobody here. Just a bunch of schlubs. And Triple A is full of a bunch of guys who, you know, are quadruple A players. So really, only Howard Johnson should get an opportunity to crack the lineup at some point this season. This is not the worst lineup I've ever seen. I'm curious to see what Fred McGriff does as a rookie, getting to play every single day. That might be interesting. But between Fred McGriff, Willie Wilson, and Gary Templeton, really not a lot of depth. Well, I mean, look at every player in their lineup, with the exception of McGriff and Gary Templeton, are below league average with their ratings. So really not a lot of hope here. Maybe they'll get a couple good players in the draft. Okay, let's take a look at their pitching rotation. This is where they truly are horrible. Their ace is Keith Creel, here represented by a 1984 Flair card. He went 8-11 last year. Not great. He is rated at 83, so he's above average. And with 25 starts, so yeah, I mean, he might get an opportunity here to make every start this season. The number 2 starter is Dennis Leonard. I believe this was his last full season, 1984, before he temporarily retired due to injury. He came back later. But you can't argue with the results. He went 16-13 with 148 strikeouts. So pretty solid there. 143 career wins. Howard Bailey, we traded him over here. He was part of that deal with for George Brett. He made 6 starts for the Royals and was not particularly good, but he was on the 84 Tigers World Series team, and so maybe he'll have a good year in 1984 for the Royals. Their number 4 starter is our own Jerry Uger. We really tried to give him every opportunity to be an everyday rotation guy, but he just could not get it done. Couldn't stay healthy and really was unproductive, walking more than he struck out. He came over to Kansas City in that same deal that I mentioned and walked more than he struck out for them too. But that's just how bad they are. They do not have anyone to really step into these roles. And so Jerry Uger will be number 4 in the rotation. And Mike Paxton, I don't know how this guy is still in baseball. He lost 20 games last year with a 6.36 ERA, more walks than strikeouts. I mean, it's clear that the rotation is subpar. The closer, at least out of spring training, is going to be Al Holland. He was the closer for Minnesota and for San Francisco, became a free agent, so the Royals must have just signed him to a deal. A 2-year deal. So that's, I guess, their big pitching. Raleigh Eastwick, again, another player who should be out of baseball, but is holding on. And, he'll get plenty of time in the bullpen. Gene Pence, He was a closer for a couple of years with the Pirates, 22 saves and 19 saves, so they must have signed him to a free agent deal. They did. For what purpose? As their starting rotation is horrible. Atlee Hammaker, he got 8 saves last year in relief for the Royals. Roger Mason, he did really well. Look at that. Maybe one good player in the bullpen. Maybe it could be a spot starter if they needed it. And then we take a look here at their minor league options. Jeff Schattinger, Rennie Martin, Bob Galasso, Rich Gale. Gale's a starter, right? Yeah, so he could get some. He's probably the first one up from AAA to get his start. But no big names there. AA, they're holding on to Larry Gura, Ken Brett, 59 rating. I mean, that's horrible. Just cut these guys loose. Nobody here. I mean, Rick Lucan's got a good rating. So does this Dar Smith guy. They probably still need some minor league seasoning. But here we go. We look at their single A roster. They got Brett Saberhagen down in single A. And really, I mean, somebody named Mark Dewey, Ron Robinson. I mean, Jeff Musselman, a reasonable left-handed closer or reliever. But nothing else. I mean, there's nothing else there to get excited about, unfortunately. So this is going to be another cellar dweller season for the Royals, I think. Maybe they can, I'm sure they're going to probably have a fire sale and try to get rid of maybe Dennis Leonard. But they do need some innings eaters, so who knows what will happen with them. I just would imagine they're going to end up in last place. So let's move on to the next team, which is the Texas Rangers. They finished in 6th place with a record of 70 and 92. They have 2 rookies in their lineup. We'll take a look at them when we get to them, I guess. Let's look at the lineup rundown here. Batting leadoff is going to be Rodney Scott playing second base, a guy who has not had everyday play since before our season, our sim started. So not great there. Odie Davis at shortstop. Yeah, I mean, this guy has become pretty reliable as a guy that I don't know how much he ever played in the majors, but he had a pretty good year last year, batting .269. Had 38 doubles. Batting third is Tom Dunbar out in left field. The catcher is going to be Donnie Scott, and he is one of the rookies. If you remember right, last year, the Rangers only carried one catcher on their roster, and they had no second catcher on the bench. And so players like Odie Davis and Chris Spire, they were all backup catchers on this team. It's nice to see that Greg Malberg will play on the roster. That's great. So Glenn Braggs, technically his second season, but he did not play for the Rangers at the major league level last year. He did at 18 years old in 1981. Okay, Jim Lindemann will become I guess he's maybe their DH. Lindemann is the DH. He got some PT last year early, and then they sent him down, even though he hit really well. It's kind of ridiculous how the game does that. Pete O'Brien, solid first baseman in real life. He had a rough year last year, but he does take a walk. So he's a valuable guy to have in the lineup. Tucker Ashford still sticking around as their everyday third baseman. You see him represented in real life as a New York Met. I mean, his batting average has gone down the last, 4 years, but he's going to be their starting third baseman. And Billy Sample will be out there in left field. He's a good mainstay. And looks like he's already on the block. Batted .249 last year. Then we'll look at their bench here. Greg Malberg, he was their regular starting catcher. And then, as I mentioned, they just threw in anybody from any position to fill up that catcher spot. So I'm glad they've got 2 catchers this year. Steve Buechele, a good potential third baseman of the future. Great defensively. Look at the numbers are great. His fielding rating is a 92. Bob Brower will be back as a fourth outfielder. Wayne Tollison, not really what you might call a utility guy. He can play anywhere in the infield, but really shortstop is his only good position. And Terry Bogner, who it says center field, but he kept playing first base last year, did not hit a home run. Okay, let's take a look at their minor league system. As I mentioned, Chris Meyer still holding on. Otto Valiz, he was their everyday DH last year. He played a ton, but it looks like he has fallen off a cliff here. And he is under contract until 1986. So, I mean, they're going to be paying him to be sitting AAA. That's kind of ridiculous. Leon Roberts, not a good rated player, but he did play a lot last year in right field. And he batted us around a couple of times, if I remember. So, in AA, not a lot to look at here. Nelson Simmons rated highly at 87. A lot of names, like there's Steve Garvey still holding on. I mean, it annoys me that these players are still, they're down in double A. I mean, they should just be retired if the game's not going to utilize them properly. Hey, they've got Jose Canseco as a 19-year-old in single A. He should be up within a couple of years. They could use his bat. Geronimo Baroa is a solid hitter from this era. You might remember him from, the Moneyball days for the A's. And, yeah, I mean, that's about it. Jeff Rabelais, pretty solid defensive infielder. Trent Hubbard, actually a good fourth outfield option. So they do have some players in single A with, an over 80 rating. Mike Blowers, he had a couple good years for the Mariners in real life. So, not a complete loss for this team. I mean, they do have several players. Almost half of their lineup is, under league average at certain positions. So, let's take a look at their pitching here. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is terrible as well. They have Al Lakowitz, a guy that came out of nowhere, pretty much a career minor leaguer, but he's doing well in this game. He's 12-9 last year. 100. He walks a ton. Look at that. He walked 127 in 82, and at least he evened it out in 1983. So he might even have a better year this year. 3.35 ERA. He is their ace. I'm sure you've never heard of them unless you've watched our game. Bryn Smith, former Tiger. We really tried to make him work in 1982, but we were struggling to find pitchers to fill in for our injuries. He went 12-13 in 1983. Made 30 starts. He wasn't the worst. Brian Allard, he pitched 33 starts last year, 12-17. Not a good ERA, more walks and strikeouts. And Moose Haas, he is holding on. He's only 27 years old in his third season with the Rangers with a 77 rating. Not great. But maybe he might actually be their second best pitcher behind that Lakowitz guy. And the fifth man in the rotation is Jim Farr, a guy who's been up and down from the minor leagues. His rating, he's only a 73. He went 5-14 last year. This team needs to sign a free agent or make a trade. Get that fifth starter. Let's take a look at their bullpen. This is a strength for them for sure. They've got the Terminator, Tom Hankey, as their closer. He had 24 saves and 33 last year with a 1.78 ERA. Super solid. Mark Mercer, I believe he was the only left-hander they had out of the pen last year. 77.2 innings pitched. 29-year-old lefty. He's looking pretty solid. Then we have Tony Fossis. Played in the majors a long, long time. He was a loogie, a left-handed one-out guy. It says second season. He pitched one inning. Come on. Then there's JDG, Jerry Don Clayton. He had a late season call-up, pitched pretty well. Bob McClure, longtime major leaguer. His ratings are low, but he's going to make the team, it looks like, unless they do any free agent signings. He pitched horribly last year. And the great Charlie Huff. He's their long reliever. He gets to do a few games every year. His endurance is good enough to start if he needed to start a couple of ball games. He's throwing that knuckleball. And let's take a look at their minor league pitchers. They do have Mike Mason, rated an 81. That guy should be somewhere on this team. Holy cow, they've got 4 lefties in the pen after only having 1 last year. They need to get some righties in there. So Mike Mason could be that guy. Nobody else in AAA worth mentioning. AA, Norm Charlton, another left-hander, and Bob Sebra, some pretty highly rated AA pitchers. Scott May, I guess you could throw in that group. Single A, Jose Melendez, and Sean Hilligus. Not anyone to get excited about. So Urbano Lugo is on this team with a 65 rating in Single A. So yeah, I mean this. You can't see this team advancing at all. Maybe on the strength of these 3, well-rated starters, but they tend to walk a lot of batters, so their whip is going to be high. They do have a good bullpen. Maybe if they can get to the bullpen early, like we're doing in our 1969 Seattle Pilots series, that might give them a little bit of hope. Next team we're going to take a look at here is the Minnesota Twins. The Twinkies, they went 72 and 90 last year. They have a bunch of rookies that looks like they might get a shot. Oh, maybe, I don't know. Let's take a look at the lineup here. Well, we know Kurt Siebert. This guy gets 300 at-bats every year. He can steal a couple bases. No home runs, no power at all. He's their second baseman. A guy named Gary Cooper, a 19-year-old rookie, is going to man the hot spot there at third. Doesn't look like he has a lot to offer. Not good defensively. Not a lot of power. Not any power, actually. Boy, this team is rough. Here's Jim Eisenreich. He almost had 600 at-bats last year, batted .265. So he'll be out in right field. He's a good player. Big Daddy Cecil Fielder, turning 20 years old. He had 32 home runs for the Twins last year as a 19-year-old. 101 RBI, batted .282. Struck out a bunch, as you might expect. But this guy is the real deal. So that's cool to see him get some PT. John Tamargo, was he a free agent signing? Let's take a look at the transactions. Yep, 2 years. 2-year deal to catch for the Twins. Been getting around 400 at-bats a year for the Expos. Dave Edwards, looks like he might play in center field. His career is pretty much toast. Jesus Vega, looks like he's going to be their DH. 28-year-old right-handed bat. Listed as at the DH position. That makes sense. He doesn't play anywhere well. He does have some power, at least. Mike Fishlin, also known as Fish Lips. He is their shortstop. You see there, he played quite a bit last year, 144 games. We'll round out, let's go back here to Hoskin Powell. He got almost 600 at-bats last year. 47 doubles, .292 hitter. Not too shabby hitting there in the Metrodome. So there's your lineup. They do have some power. Why is he so far down in the batting lineup? I don't know. I'm sorry. That's stolen base. That's my bad. They got it right with Cecil Fielder. Their bench will include Dave Engel, rated a 76, the same as Tamargo, but Tamargo's a switch hitter. Dave Engel had 20 home runs last year. This is your guy. This is your future. I don't know why they're not going with him. Then we have Deion James. He played left field last year for the Twins, and now he's a fourth outfielder. Defensively, not good. Houston Jimenez will be your backup utility man, really. He can play anywhere, even left field. So he should get plenty of at-bats. Billy Smith, this guy's career's toast. He's a second baseman. And Randy Velarde looks like he's going to start the season on the roster as a rookie. Not great defensive ratings, but he could hit. He's got good speed, so that should help out the Twins. Let's take a look at their minor league. Gary Renicky is now relegated to AAA after having a good year at the major league level as their left fielder. They have Randy. I mean, these are not guys you're going to get excited about here. Yeah, nobody good at AAA. AA, they have more schlubs. Somebody named Gil Reyes who has a good rating. They have B.J. Surhoff in single A. That's someone to look forward to. He's good. Always pretty good in this sim. Jay Bell, all-star shortstop. That'll be a good addition once he makes it to the majors. Troy Neal, kind of a bust in real life, but he was known for having a big bat. And, Lou Frazier, Eduardo Jimenez. They do have a guy on the DL. It's Jack Doherty. Oops. There he is. He got a little bit of PT last year. But he won't be available until mid-April. Okay, let's take a look at the Twins' pitching rotation. This is an interesting team. Paul Moscow remains their ace. He was traded right after we started the sim to the Twins, and he has steadily declined, but still technically their ace. He's 30 years old, 6-16 last year, and probably on his way out. He's still under contract through next year, though. Tom Klowitter, this guy came out of nowhere as a lefty and went 17-11, 9 complete games, 3 shutouts. I know he had at least one of those against us. Frank Sweet Music Viola, this guy cannot stay healthy. He did get into 29 starts in 82 last year. He was injured almost the whole year. I would definitely be interested in having him, stay healthy for a whole year and seeing what his results would be. So Frank Viola, he's their future. And Dennis Burt went 10-18 last year as their number 5 starter. Pretty terrible. Almost a 7 ERA. Chuck Rainey, he made all his starts last year, 32 starts, 11-17, 5.27 ERA. But look at those walk to strikeout ratios. I mean, that's horrible. But he's an inning eater. He went 215 innings last year. And then we'll take a look here at their bullpen. Their closer is going to be Doug Corbett. He had 23 saves last year, 6 blueies. Pretty solid, though. I think he's probably the best guy to be their closer. Frank Euphemia got into 15 games last year. Doesn't look good. Mike Kinnunen, 21 games last year, 4.01 ERA. Paul Boris, 6-6 out of the bullpen with a 5.44 ERA. John Martin, former Tiger. He is a lefty out of the bullpen. Good ratings. Maybe he'll pitch well next year. Eric Rasmussen, the mustache there, pretty impressive. 32 games with a 3.25 ERA. 72 innings pitched, so he pitched long relief, definitely out of the bullpen. Okay, let's take a look at what they have otherwise. Just a bunch of schlubs. So many schlubs. There's Doug Rao. Man, for a while there, he was a pretty good pitcher in our sim, but he's been so often injured, and he's under contract for almost $1 million. He's in AA. Who do they have that they can use? Look at these 3 guys right here in a row at AA. Jay Tibbs. Kevin Gross, he's ready to go right now. The guy's got an 83 rating. He went 3-2 last year. Why is this guy not in the 5th spot? We're definitely going to see him this year. Andy Rincon, pretty solid. Kurt Wardell with an 84 rating. Let's take a look at their single A. And they've got Rich DeLucia, rated an 80 right now. Marvin Freeman, Scott Ruskin, Chuck Malone, and that's about it. I mean, whenever, we're looking at these rosters, I'm like, I can only see them finishing right about where they did last year. I mean, could the Twins, if they get some better pitching from Frank Viola, if he could stay healthy the whole year with this bullpen, can they jump up one spot? Probably. But this is a team that kind of looks like they are who they are. It'll be interesting to see if any of these new acquisitions can provide them any offense at all. Okay, moving on to the next team. It is the Chicago White Sox. As we're going in between, you'll see these are the numbers they put up last year, if you're curious. And the one thing the White Sox did have last year, other than a 75-87 record, is they were capable of hitting some big home runs. So let's take a look at the White Sox roster. Looks like they have maybe four rookies in the lineup to go with the big power combo of Rod Allen and Ron Kittle. Let's take a look at these guys here. Batting leadoff will be Ty Gainey out in center field. He did get some PT late last year. Doesn't look particularly good. Batting second is Neil Fiala, a guy that I couldn't even tell you who he was, but he's been their everyday second baseman for 2 years. Batted .327 and .305. So the one thing this guy does do is get on base. Batting third is the Rookie of the Year, Rod Allen. I don't know what to say about that. But you look at his rookie numbers, and he crushed it. And will he have a sophomore slump? I don't know. We'll find out. Ron Kittle, 38 home runs, 108 RBI, batted .261, struck out a ton, and he is their left fielder. Is he either DH? No, Rod Allen is the DH, so Ron Kittle will be their left fielder. Something he does not do well, but somebody's got to be out there. Got to get that bat in the lineup. Sap Randall, he was a rookie last year, first baseman. He put up some good numbers. Walked a ton, 74 walks. That's a lot for this game. They're going to have a rookie catcher. It's Joel Skinner. You see his rookie card, Donruss from '84. Only played 12 games at the Double-A level, and they're moving him right into the everyday lineup. He's got 95 power. That is crazy, and a lot of gap power. So he's going to hit some home runs. He's going to get some doubles. And what team couldn't use that? Tim Hewlett will be their third baseman. Played a pretty solid third base last year. Good rating. He could play second base as well. And Dale Swaim will be the shortstop rookie. Terrible rating at short, but he's got some power. This team's going to hit a lot of home runs again. Oh, and we forgot the right fielder. That is Brad Kaminsk. Not a good rating. He is going to be a rookie next year. All he does is hit long balls, but he's not going to put up a good batting average. And maybe that's why they have him in the number 9 spot. So, okay, let's take a look at their bench. They have Jim Sundberg. He was the backup last year. Biff Pocoroba was their starter, and he goes to AAA. So Jim Sundberg, one of the best defensive catchers of this era, will be the backup. Buddy Bell played almost every day at third base. There's your defensive specialist. Put up some good numbers. Weird that he's not in that role at third. Chris Nyman, first time in the majors since one game in '82. Fran Mullins, he started almost every game last year at shortstop and third. So he had 20 home runs last year, batted .255. How are these guys not in the lineup? Rusty Kuntz, there's your fourth outfielder. He could play anywhere in the outfield if he needed to. The guys had 17, 9, 23, and 15 home runs. as you see him represented here on the Tigers baseball card. Okay, let's take a look at their AAA players. As I mentioned, they have a good third catcher. That is a Biff Pocoroba. Harry Chappis got into the majors quite a bit last year. Tony Scott, he played every day in center field for this team. And because Ron LaFleur was injured most of the year, and so much for that. Now he's down to AAA. They have Mike Squires. So their AAA is pretty shabby. There's Harold Baines. I don't know why his rating is not good in this game, but he is somebody who's probably not going to make the majors at all. And that's a bummer. Okay, AA, a bunch of names here too. I mean, no one to get excited about. We'll scroll on down, see if we can't find somebody here. There's Rick Shue. There's Greg Walker, both with solid ratings, potentially for the future. Jim Olander. Oddibe McDowell. Remember when he came up in '82? Look at that. As a 19-year-old, he batted the whole season. He had 51 stolen bases, and they're throwing schlubs out there. So we've got to get Oddibe in there. Dave Martinez. That would be a big help. Rich Rowland. Nelson Liriano. Todd Zeal. Get Todd Zeal up there, man. Rated in 89. Drew Denson. They have a bunch of guys in single A with 80 ratings. I mean, they do have some players that they can count on. But they definitely have power, and they're going to hit a lot of home runs and have a lot of miserable games because their pitching staff is not great. But it's coming around. I guess it improved over last year. Let's take a look at the rotation. The number one starter is Britt Burns. You see him made 34 starts, went 14 and 13, 159 strikeouts. The guy's rated 91. I mean, that's amazing. 4-pitch pitcher, and he is their ace at age 24. Then they got Richard Dotson. He's 25 years old, 17 and 12 last year, sub-4 ERA, 186 strikeouts. Then Rich Barnes is their number 3 pitcher. Made 13 starts last year, pitched well. Not a great walk-to-strikeout ratio, but the ratings are high. He's 24 years old. Bob Fallon, another youngster, he's 24. Went 7 and 8 in 20 starts. And the number 5 starter is Steve Trout, who's only 26. So all of their rotation guys are 26 years old or younger. That's kind of impressive. They keep that core together. If they're good, they might have a team for the future. Okay, let's take a look at their bullpen. This is where things get a little shaky. They have Salome Barojas as their closer. The guy had a great year last year, 21 saves and a 1.46 ERA, but he only pitched in 38 games, so I don't know if he's somebody you can rely on or not. Bert Roberge, setup guy. Nice year from him. Dewey Robinson, this guy totally blew up the last 2 years. Unreliable, but he's in the pen as a short reliever. Al Jones got a late season call-up. He did all right. And they have Juan Agosto, the left-handed specialist. He's going to put up good numbers. He had a great career in real life. A long career as a lefty. Jim Seawee came up late, put up some decent numbers in 13 relief appearances. Maybe could start if they needed him to. That's going to round out their bullpen. Let's take a look at their minor league guys. Look at this. They have John Matlack at AAA. He has definitely started going down. He's 6-7 with a 4.67 ERA. He's going to be the first guy up if there's an injury. Reggie Patterson, good numbers. Francisco Barrios, who of course was dead a couple years ago in '82 in real life, but he's still hanging on here. Mark Esser, there's Lamar Hoyt. Had a .50 ERA in 18 innings. Ross Baumgarten, I mean, they do have some good AAA options if they need it. Double A, Bruce Tanner, Chuck Tanner's son. Good rating. Jack Hardy, Barry Jones, those are all guys with 80 ratings. And I think you'll see they'll have a future on this team. At Single A, who do they have? Not much. They basically have Al Osuna, lefty, a loogie, and Buddy Groom, another loogie. He did close a little bit in the majors. So, I mean, this team could be a 500 team if everything goes well for them. But they don't look like it on paper. I guess that's what I'm saying. So if some of these rookies could come around, they have a chance at least being a 500 team. Okay, we are moving on to the next team, which is the Seattle Mariners. Seattle Mariners in '82 went to the playoffs and lost in the World Series to the Reds. Last year they went 84-78, fell to third place. They've got three rookies in their lineup. They did do a team overhaul. This team is in transition, I guess is the way I would describe them. Harold Reynolds is their leadoff hitter, playing second base. He had 35 stolen bases last year. Batting second is Spike Owen at shortstop. Guy walks a ton, walks more than he strikes out. A good player. Alvin Davis will be a rookie this year, playing first base, or he might even be the DH. And then Ricardo Sainz, he was a rookie of the year. Was he MVP? That's right. He won the home run title and was an MVP. They had rewarded him with a 4-year deal. 34 homers, 30 home runs last year, 104 RBIs in back-to-back years, and batted .305. A player that you probably don't even know his name, and yet in this sim, he is a god. Next up is Tom Pagnozzi, the nozzle, as we call him. 31 home runs, a total breakout year at age 20. This team can hit. Tom Dodd, he got a part-time gig last year, had 248 at-bats, playing third base. Dave Henderson, Hendu, he is their everyday center fielder, had a really good year, 35 home runs. He's only 25 years old. Dick Schofield at shortstop, he is 21 years old this year. He is kind of the utility guy. And Ricky Nelson, I'm sorry, Schofield's their everyday shortstop, my bad. Or is he their DH? Let's look. Oh, he's their DH, right, because they have Spike Owen. You want Dick Schofield as your shortstop, or as your DH? That doesn't make sense. And Ricky Nelson, who passed away last year in real life, he'll be the right fielder for this team as a rook. We'll take a look at their bench. Bob Stinson still hanging around. He's 38 years old, hasn't played in the majors since 1980, and yet he's on this roster, getting a few at-bats every year as their backup catcher. His arm is a 58. Come on, man. I can't wait to run wild against him. Julio Cruz, speaking of running wild, the guy with a lot of speed, he is their backup second baseman. Probably should be in the lineup. Dave Stapleton, they traded for him last year. All he did was hit 27 home runs and 100 RBI, and he's not even in their lineup. He's their backup first baseman. Jim Anderson gets a little bit of play every year. He is a utility guy. And John Moses, fourth outfielder. Speedy dude. Can play anywhere. Okay, let's take a look at their minor league squad. They have Rod Craig, played a lot last year. Phil Bradley. Dave Edler, he got injured. But he was at one point every day third baseman for them. Bruce Bhakti is his career is pretty much done. Tom Foley. Let's look at their double A. Nobody. Nothing. Nothing at all. But here it is, folks. Single A, they've got Mark McGuire coming up the ranks. That guy is going to crush it if he makes it to the majors. Dave Hengel, rated over 80. Scroll down some more. Tommy Gregg, Tommy Hinzo. Joe Oliver at catcher. Scott Livingstone, highly rated. Tommy Shields. Mark Grace. Oh, no. They have Mark McGuire and Mark Grace to play first base. Somebody's got to get traded. So this team has some really great single-A options. They have a good future. This team, I don't know if they're going to be good this year. I could see them dropping back behind Chicago based on their offense, but they're going to be all right for the future, unless they make some dumb moves. Let's take a look at the rotation. This is where they're really, really solid, although their ERAs don't look it. But Mark Langston, if it wasn't for Teddy Higuera, would have won back-to-back Cy Youngs. He went 20-8 last year with a 3.24 ERA, 258 strikeouts. I mean, he absolutely just dominates this league. And they gave him a major league deal, earning over $1 million a year back in 1984. Bud Black, back-to-back lefties in the rotation. He went 12-12. His first real taste of the majors. Roy Branch, a guy that really didn't pitch much in the majors, but in this sim, he's pretty good. He went 16-9 in 82 and 15-14 last year, made all of his starts. Oh, man, this guy is wild. He had 152 walks. That's like Nolan Ryan level of walkage. So, yeah, he gets a lot of guys on base. Floyd Bannister, I don't know why he's not doing better. He had a rough year last year. Another lefty, 188 strikeouts in 215 innings pitched, going 12-16. So this is the reason why they had to step back. Some of their pitchers that they really counted on did struggle. You'll see Floyd Bannister's playoff record in 82 when he faced the Tigers, our Tigers, in the ALCS. And then his two starts there in the World Series. And Floyd Yeomans will be their number 5 starter. He's going to be a rookie. He made one start in 1983 as an 18-year-old. He's going to be 19 and in that rotation as a number 5 starter. That is kind of crazy. Their bullpen, let's take a look at it here. Carlos Diaz, I don't like left-handed closers. He is one of those. He had 24 saves last year, 6 blown saves. Ed Vandenberg, another lefty, a lefty setup guy. Only played in a little over a dozen games. Manny Sarmiento, he closed in 82, had 30 saves, and gave up the duty to Diaz last year. Mark Littell was a closer for the Cardinals in 1982. And he barely pitched at all in 83 for the Mariners. It's good to see they're getting their good guys into the bullpen, though. Brian Snyder did not pitch at all in the majors last year. He was down in AAA. Those numbers you see there were from 1980. Rick Anderson, another Anderson. He is pretty good. He had 99 innings pitched, all in relief. So he's a long reliever. Let's take a look at their minor league guys. Carl Best has a good rating. Bob Stoddard has a good rating. You don't see anybody down here that pitched at all last year except for Ron Musselman through 1 inning. So they must have let a lot of guys go. They do have Bill Swift in AA. Todd Froworth, some really good numbers there. Single A, they have Wally Whitehurst, Dave Otto. They have a Japanese pitcher named Satoru Komiyama. Good numbers. Mark Guthrie as well. Is he kind of like a long reliever? Nope, he's a short reliever. So they have some good players in the minors. I mean, they have Mark McGuire and Mark Grace. They should trade one of those guys and get a better closer. But this team's going to be good. I mean, they're probably going to be better than 500. Next year, but just based on their pitchers, it would be interesting to see how they do if Roy Branch can figure out how to get the ball over the plate. Okay, we're moving along here. We're almost done. Got 2 more teams to go. Next up is the California Angels. The Angels, a little bit of a surprise team last year at 85-77. Just missed winning the division by 2 games. They have turned over some of their roster. Gary Pettis is their leadoff hitter. As you might imagine, he had 71 stolen bases. I believe that led the American League. No, it did not. Oh, because he got injured. That's right. I wonder who. I can't remember who took the American League stolen base title. So Gary Pettis leading off, playing great outfield. He's in center. Terry Poole signed as a free agent. Not a good offensive guy, as far as power goes, but he doubles a lot. He batted .329 for Houston in 1982, and he's great defensively. So if the Angels are trying to go defensively, that's 2 good pieces in the outfield. Bryant Harper got the everyday job as catcher. 32 doubles, 23 home runs, batted .276. That's pretty good. Jack Howell will be the rookie third baseman. Not great. Is he their DH? Let's see here. No, he's going to be their third baseman. That's impressive. Darryl Sconiers will play first base. He did all last year. Didn't bat well, batting average-wise. Sub-700 OPS, but he was their everyday player. Rolando Rooms will play every day in left field. Yep. Then we have Glenn Hubbard getting to play second base. He was kind of like the backup utility guy last year. And Gus Polidor will play short as a rookie. Went between single A and double A. That's not good. That's not a good sign. And Brian Downing will be their everyday DH. And you could count on him for a good batting average. So Steve Lubertich, their everyday second baseman last year, is now going to be on the bench. They have Darryl Miller as their backup catcher. Didn't play much last year. John Harris. All Harris did was hit 30 home runs at first base, and now he's on the bench. That's ridiculous. Darryl Sconiers will be the first baseman. That doesn't make any sense to me. Mike Brown had 24 home runs in right field, and he's on the bench. Ricky Adams, backup infielder. Wow, he's a long-time single-A rookie, promoted to the bench role for middle infielder. Carney Lansford is in AAA. Come on, Bobby Grich. He's at the end of his career. Bruno, there's a guy that should be playing every day in right field, but they decide to sign Terry Poole over Tom Brunansky. That doesn't make any sense. Who do they have at AA? Nobody of note. Single A, they have a guy named Pete Coachman, rated an 89. Craig Graybeck, a 91. Mark Leonard, an 89. Kurt Manwaring, at catcher, rated an 86. Luis Sojo, an 83. So they have some recognizable names there in single A, but it's going to be a while before they help out the majors. Gosh, that lineup looks terrible, but it was kind of bad last year. They did win only 85 games, so they were 4 games above 500. Man, they could just totally drop. Let's look at their their rotation here. Wow, they've really moved this around quite a bit. But everybody who was in the rotation was there last year, so they're bringing everybody back. That's always a plus. Ron Romanick made 31 starts, went 12-13. He's going to be tabbed as their ace. His health is a 57, and in every sim I've ever done, Ron Romanick has been good and always injured. And that's been the case so far. As a 23-year-old, he's going to be their ace. He won't last long. Mike Witt, great pitcher, 15-8 last year with an ERA over 4. He's number 2. You son of a bitch. Frank Tanana. He is their number 3 starter, 15-11 last year, my arch nemesis in his 30-year-old season. Ed Halicki, I don't know how this guy keeps going out there and producing. He was out of baseball by 1981 in real life, but here he is in 1984, still putting up some decent numbers. And Dave Frost will be their number 5 starter. He went 14-13 last year. More walks and strikeouts, not a strikeout pitcher. Bunch of junk balls. But you know what? He put up 212 innings, so he can eat some innings. Let's take a look at their bullpen. Their closer is Mark Clear, a guy that I almost traded for last year. It was down between him and Dave Smith, and we chose Dave Smith. He had 28 saves, 7 blueies. He has 118 saves in his career. So he is their definite closer. Not too shabby. Todd Fisher, their setup man, not a good year. 5.35 ERA in relief. He's only 23. T.R. Bryden, he is very good in the short relief role. 2.09 ERA. Kurt Brown, he is going to be a rookie in the bullpen, coming up from Double-A with an 80 rating. Mike O'Very, he is solid 4-1 with a 3.48 ERA. Kip Young, still holding on with 21 starts last year. He was way out of baseball by 1980. He went 3-13 for the Reds last year. 3-13, I should say. And he's going to be the long reliever on this team, it looks like. That's not a good sign if Kip Young is in your bullpen. They have Chris Knapp. He will be their first man out of the AAA to get a start, I would imagine. Dave Schuler, Freddie Martinez. These guys are schlubs. Bruce Keeson holding on. Double-A. They got Bill Wegman. Is he a starter? Yes. So he could be a starter for them. Made a couple starts in 1982. Kirk McCaskill, a very reliable starter. Jeff Brantley, a great reliever. Part of the Nasty Boys. Who do they have at single-A here? Jeff Ballard, Eric Bell, Gene Harris, Terry Matthews, Dwayne Ward. A lot of good relievers. Xavier Hernandez, a good reliever. And Don Ossie, whose career is pretty much done. He'll be ready by opening day. He's injured right now. So, you know what? They have 5 stable starting pitchers. Almost all of them with 200 innings or more. And they've got a couple guys they can rely on in AAA. If one of those guys, probably, let's face it, it's probably going to be Ron Romanick. He's going to get injured. We know that at some point. So, I don't know. I can't tell. I don't think this team is good. But are they above 500? Can they compete with Oakland? We'll find out. Let's take a look at the Oakland A's. They won the division last year. They went to the World Series and lost to the Metropolitans. They have some guy named Cal Ripken as a rookie. Let's take a look at this lineup. Batting leadoff in center field is Rusty McNeely. He's been playing consistently every year, and he put up 469 at-bats last year. 56 stolen bases, so he could steal a base. He replaced Ricky Henderson, who we traded for. He got the job after he left. Shooty Babbitt, everyday second baseman. 20 home runs last year. Where did that come from? 37 stolen bases. Kevin Mitchell tailed off a little bit last year. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1981. Had 19 home runs and 376 at-bats. Remember, that was the strike-shortened year. There's only 110 games played that season. Mickey Tettleton, this guy was batting under 200 almost all year. He did manage to get over the Mendoza line. He's their everyday catcher. He's got a lot of power. Mike Davis out in right field. Very reliable. Joe DeSa played first base last year for the A's. Did okay. Tony Phillips, second baseman. He can play just about anywhere, really. look at the consistent numbers that he's put up. He walks a ton. Really an increase every year. And Cal Ripken, finally at age 23, will get an opportunity to play shortstop for the A's. I'm definitely curious to see how he does. His ratings are not great. It annoys me how this game does not treat real-life Hall of Famers with any respect. But I'm glad to see him in the lineup. Otherwise, he could end up being a long-time AAA player, maybe never make it. Chris Pitaro, former Detroit Tiger, future Detroit Tiger in real life, I guess, will be their everyday third baseman. So that's going to round out their everyday lineup. They still have Carlton Fisk holding on as their backup. He is at the end of his career in the sim, but of course he played until he was 40 in real life. Mickey Klutz, Larry Herndon as a fourth outfielder. Tony Brewer, oh my gosh. He had 31 home runs last year, and he's on the bench because he doesn't have a spot. Who is the DH? Oh, it's Tony Phillips, who could easily be playing second base, but then they have Shooty Babbitt. So, yeah, this is just a numbers game. And I guess Tony Brewer's the odd man out. That sucks. And it doesn't make any sense, but that's how the game works. AAA, they don't have anybody. AA, do they have anyone of note? Stan Jefferson, Robbie Thompson. He has a good rating. Matt Noakes was a solid catcher with power in real life. And in single A, they have, Lenny Dykstra, who's maybe not going to even make it to the majors with an 80 rating. Jim Leyritz to catch. Ellis Burks, a great outfielder, good hitter, and he had speed. Eddie Williams, Scott Heeman, somebody named Dan Romeyer, and Torey Lovello, former manager and Detroit Tiger. So those guys have good ratings. I mean, this team could sustain winning the division. I mean, they only won 87 games last year. In a weird way, now that we've kind of gone through all the lineups in the West, I mean, the White Sox might have the best roster, right up there with Seattle. I don't know if Oakland can come back and win with some of these schlubs. Not Cal Ripken, obviously. But that'll be interesting. Let's take a look at their pitchers, and then we'll wrap this baby up. They had one of the biggest free agent signings of the offseason. They signed Dennis Martinez to a $2 million deal. A small market team like the A's, this is really going to hurt them. They already have him as Mike Trade. He went 14-8 with a 3.83 ERA. Pretty solid year for El Presidente. 7 walks, 4 shutouts. He's a 5-pitch pitcher. And definitely the staff ace. Number 2 is Mike Warren. Made 28 starts last year as a 21-year-old. 15-7. A nice breakout season. Number 3 is Mike Norris. This guy's arm is just holding on barely. He did have a good year last year, 11-8. A 4.02 ERA. He walks a ton of guys. Larry White, a guy that kind of came out of nowhere to make this rotation. An okay overall rating. He went 14-14 last year. And their number 5 starter is Rick Langford. We all know Rick Langford. On a team that won the division, he lost 20 ball games. Didn't even strike out 100. Billy Martin just scorched these players' arms in this era. Let's take a look at the bullpen. They had Joe Baver as their closer. Had 22 saves. Kind of took over the role mid-season. It is his job to lose. Also out of the bullpen is Jim Corsi. A good year in limited duty. Next up we have Ben Hayes. He had 39 games, 48 innings pitched, 8 saves. So he must have saved a few games in there. Billy Taylor. Only 22 years old. He will be in the bullpen. he had a good career. And Ernie Camacho, who at one point was a closer for Oakland in our sim, but now he's barely holding on. He had a 4.50 ERA last year. Kurt Young will be in the bullpen. In long relief, he made 9 starts and pitched really well, went 5-2 with a 3.57 ERA. He will probably be the first one into the rotation if there's an injury. And then we had Matt Keogh. He's in AAA. He went 11-7. He's their 6th starter if they need him. Danny Schatzeder, 87 innings in relief, but the lefty is down in AAA. Who else we got here? Nobody else in single A. Dave Beard, I guess, could pitch with an 83 rating. Tim Conroy, looking good. Mike Morgan, he's already topped out at 80 in Double A. He had a good career, but not in our sim. He won't. Rick Rodriguez, Tim Burtsis, good ratings. Steve Ontiveros, the pitcher, in single A could be pretty solid. Tom Dozier, I don't know who that is. Scott Bankhead, pretty good pitcher. Don August. Orlando, is that El Duque? Oh, it is El Duque as an 18-year-old in single A. That is a great pitcher for the future. And Chris Carpenter is a good pitcher. So, and Eric King. So they do have some good pitchers in single A. If they can't, continue to build. When you pay Dennis Martinez $2 million, you're not going to be able to sign any free agents. In fact, you're probably going to start cutting some of these guys loose. So it will be interesting to see what they do. I don't know if this is a team that can be repeatable, but much like we just saw with the Angels, all of their players pitched 200 innings or better. I think Dennis Martinez had missed a couple starts due to injury, but they're going to be inning eaters on this team, so that might be the key for them repeating. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's video as we looked at the American League West. We're going to come back 1 week from today, next Monday, and take a look at the National League East. There are your 6 teams in the East, and one of the teams in this division is the only team whose logo changed, and we'll show you who that is next week. So thanks for tuning in. Check out our playlist in the on the Brainiac Baseball Card Breaks homepage on YouTube, and check out some of our previous seasons or the 1969 Seattle Pilots What If Scenario, which is currently available. All right, until next week, everyone, have a great day.